Please welcome Jioni Lewis, Associate Professor of Counseling Psychology.
When I was in middle school, I always used to wear my hair in braids. The style back in the day was to wear long individual braids or box braids, just like Janet Jackson did in the movie Poetic Justice. So I used to wear these braids, and one day at school, I had a classmate come up to me and ask me all these questions about my hair. They asked me, "Is your hair real? Is it heavy? How often do you wash your hair?" They even had the nerve to ask me if they could touch my hair. I know. This situation made me very uncomfortable. It made me feel objectified, othered, and exoticized. These comments communicated that there was something wrong with the way I wore my hair. These comments communicated that I did not adhere to white Eurocentric standards of beauty. These everyday racial and gender slights are called gendered racial microaggressions. Over the past 15 years, my research has been focused on trying to better understand how these seemingly subtle, everyday forms of racism and sexism can have a cumulative negative impact on the mental health and well-being of Black women and girls. Gendered racial microaggressions are rooted in historical stereotypes about Black women, such as the caretaking and subservient mammy, the angry and aggressive Black woman, the sexualized Jezebel, and the strong Black woman or superwoman. These stereotypes serve as controlling images, which strip Black women of their full humanity and try to keep them in their place. In my focus group research with Black women at predominantly white institutions, they've shared that they have also experienced these stereotypes projected onto them in interpersonal interactions with white peers. They've also shared that they've experienced these microaggressions based on style, hair, and beauty, just like I did in school. And they also reported feeling silenced, marginalized, and invisible. For example, in one of my interviews with a Black woman educator, she shared that she often has white male students in her classroom who consistently try to challenge her authority, and she feels like it's as though they constantly try to challenge who she is, what she's saying, her authority in the classroom, particularly because she's a Black woman. Gendered racial microaggressions have an impact on the mental health and well-being of Black women. They're a chronic source of stress. In my survey research with Black women across the country, they've shared that when they experience a greater frequency of gendered racial microaggressions, it's related to poor mental health outcomes, such as increased rates of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and even suicidal ideation. Black women also report experiencing poor physical health, such as increased chronic health problems, higher blood pressure, sleep disturbances, and even pregnancy-related stress. Did you know that Black women are 3 times more likely to experience life-threatening pregnancy complications and nearly 4 times more likely to experience pregnancy-related deaths? What's even more alarming is that Black women who have college degrees experience greater maternal deaths than white women with less than a high school diploma. Yes, Black women with college degrees experience greater maternal deaths than white women with a less than a high school diploma. This means that higher levels of education and higher socioeconomic status does not protect Black women against these maternal deaths. So unfortunately, these seemingly subtle, everyday forms of racism and sexism have a cumulative negative impact on the mental health and well-being of Black women and girls across the lifespan, from early adolescence through adulthood and into one's reproductive years. So what can we do about these gendered racial microaggressions, and how can we disrupt gendered racism in our everyday lives? I do have a few recommendations for what everybody can do, but first I want to speak to Black women. We need to do more than simply survive in the face of gendered racism. We need to be able to thrive. In order to do that, we need to cultivate radical healing. Radical healing is about doing more than just simply coping with racism and sexism. It's about long-term healing and thriving. So one, we need to name racism and sexism as a chronic source of stress in our lives. It's important to identify gendered racism and how it shows up in our bodies. Two, we need to embrace our full identity as Black women and lean into cultural forms of healing and ancestral forms of healing, such as our spirituality and faith, mind-body healing, such as mindfulness, and also cultivate joy through music, the arts, and dance. And three, we need to cultivate a sister circle of support. I've been fortunate enough to develop a sister circle throughout my educational journey that's allowed me to not only survive, but to thrive in the face of gendered racism. Radical self-care is important, but squad care is even better. So what can everyone else do? I have 4 recommendations for how to disrupt gendered racism at the individual and institutional level. 1, it's important to speak up and speak truth to power. If you hear gendered racial microaggression, you need to say something. 2, it's important to implement anti-racism, anti-sexism trainings to increase everyone's awareness of their gendered racial biases and help people develop skills to disrupt it. 3, it's important to create counter spaces and affinity groups for Black women so they feel support, validation, and a sense of belonging. And 4, it's important to create stronger workplace policies that can help protect Black women against gendered racial discrimination. For example, the Crown Act is a great law to protect Black women and girls against hair-based discrimination in schools and workplace settings. We all have a collective responsibility to ensure that Black women and girls thrive in schools and education settings, in workplaces, and in larger society. Thank you.